And joining us now is Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator, Donald Trump says he greets this opinion as, quote, a big win for Republicans. He agrees, apparently, with Senator Booker and with you.
Yeah, and if you wanted another clue, the petitioner in the case was the National Republican Senate Committee. So, yeah, this is a big win for Republicans. And it's important for people looking at this to not just look at what gets said in these decisions by the justices writing the opinions, but to look at the pattern. Because what you see is a relentless pattern of this captured Supreme Court in every major political decision, having the decision go in favor of the Republican Party. We saw it with gerrymandering, when the huge Republican red map effort took place that turned Congress into the hands of the Republican Party. Even when they won a minority of the popular vote, they still got Congress thanks to red map. There is the Supreme Court clearing the way for gerrymandering. Don't worry, we won't interfere. Then comes Citizens United and its follow-on cases that allowed immense amounts of dark money into politics, which the big Republican donors were ready for. And for really a decade, that created a Republican dark money rout in American politics. We've watched their destruction of the Voting Rights Act to shore up in Republican-controlled states the ability of the legislature to make it harder for people who want to vote for Democrats to vote. And now here you've got this decision in that pattern that allows more money into politics, allows more influence on the part of big donors. I don't know about your viewers, Lawrence, but I doubt there are too many of them who think that big donors really don't have enough influence in American politics right now. We need to make sure that they can spend more and buy more influence.
So we have the Wall Street Journal predicting that if the Democrats win the Senate, you on your committee and other committees will be investigating Trump family corruption. On the Senate Judiciary Committee, will you be able to investigate in a meaningful way the kind of judicial corruption that seems to be happening around us?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that we will. But we will need to work in tandem with the House Republican, Senate, the House Judiciary Committee, Jamie Raskin's committee, because a Senate Judiciary Committee subpoena has to go to the Senate floor, as you'll remember. And on the Senate floor, they can filibuster it so that it can't be made enforceable. You can issue the subpoena, but you can't enforce the subpoena. So I will need to be working with, I hope, Chairman Raskin in order to make sure that we can actually get these subpoenas out there and understand from people like Leonard Leo how the court was captured. Understand from people like Clarence Thomas, did he or did he not pay his taxes on the income from the loan that was forgiven for his deluxe motorhome? He won't say, yeah, I paid the taxes with this money on this date. So, there are a lot of questions that need digging into, and it's probably a 30-year story. Going back to the Powell memo and the early billionaire efforts to capture the court, Leonard Leo's role in getting Alito and Roberts onto the court. There's a wonderful story to tell, and we intend to tell it.
Could a Democratic-controlled Senate Judiciary Committee compel Clarence Thomas to testify?
I believe so. I think there's a reasonable case to be made that if we're trying to influence a judicial decision, then a Supreme Court justice would be within his rights to say, no, I'm not going to testify about a judicial decision. I'm not going to explain it to you. I'm not going to let you pressure me. I'm an independent judge, and I make my own decisions about judicial matters. If it has to do with whether he paid his taxes, whether he's a tax cheat, how the administrative task of reporting things by Supreme Court justice is being accomplished, things like that are very hard to pretend aren't a proper subject of congressional scrutiny.
I want to read you a passage of Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan's book, Regime Change, because it just outlines the size of the challenge of facing a possible Democratic Congress. And this is about the corruption. It says the tributes came in many forms: a plane from the Qatari royals and hundreds of millions of dollars from America's wealthiest individuals and corporations to fund Trump's political operation, his presidential library, and a giant new ballroom on the grounds of the White House. Foreign investors saw a more straightforward path to influence, putting money directly into the pockets of the Trump family through their crypto ventures. There was so much capitulation, so much conquest, so much corruption. It became hard to follow. It would be the job of a Democratic Congress to figure out, to map out how to follow all of that.
Yeah, it's what military aviators would call a target-rich environment. And we need to be very smart about which particular acts of corruption we put the most focus on. And bear in mind that this election is going to be very much about the day-to-day finances of the average American family and how stuff just costs too much, and where the corruption links to higher costs for Americans, like higher electric rates, because Trump's cronies are stopping cheaper, clean energy. So the grid has to go to the expensive fossil fuel stuff to pay off his corrupt fossil fuel donors. Now, there's a story that combines cost and corruption very clearly. But you are right. We could get lost in the amount of corruption that Trump has unleashed, and we'll have to be smart about being focused.
Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.